You are watching the Fayetteville Government Channel. Up next, full coverage of the latest meeting of the Fayetteville Council of Neighborhoods. The Council of Neighborhoods is composed of citizen volunteers and meets on the last Thursday of each month. The Council of Neighborhoods provides a forum for neighborhood associations to share information, concerns, and ideas, and provides a mechanism to communicate with elected officials and governmental agencies. And now, the Fayetteville Council of Neighborhoods.
Well, I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the October 25th, 2012 meeting of the Fayetteville Council of Neighborhoods. Should we go around and introduce ourselves? Aubrey, you want to start us off?
Aubrey Shepherd from the Town Ranch neighborhood, South Fayetteville.
Don Connor, Root School Neighborhood Association.
Richard Russell, Jennings Plus.
Alex Talley, liaison for the university.
Mike Airy from the West Custer neighborhood.
Stan Lancaster, Jefferson Walker.
Lindsley Smith, City of Fayetteville Communication Director. I'm staffing the committee.
And tonight also we have with us Jane and Don Steinkraus. Jane is the person who is versed in native and local plants. She advocates and advises in the area of our natural setting. And her husband Don is also present with us tonight. He's an entomologist. And the reach to the subject of songbirds will be forthcoming.
All right, thank you.
We're ready to get your presentation if you're ready.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all for coming. My title is Bringing Nature Home to Fayetteville, How to Sustain Wildlife with Native Plants. And we're going to be thinking about how to foster a diverse and healthy native ecosystem and how to recognize and remove invasive non-native plants. I use that title because this is a book that's been really influential with Don and me and a lot of naturalists in the country. It's written by Doug Tallamy. He's entomologist and head of the department at the University of Delaware. And this is just an outstanding book. I could not recommend it more highly. And it's also just a fun and interesting read. It's not a heavy-duty science book. But Doug feels that we can, as individuals, and should play a vital role in the preservation of our native ecosystems and wildlife, and that we can start that by fostering and protecting our native plants, which are the foundation for insects, birds, and other animal life. Sorry. And I'm just going to distill this because these are the different points we'll be making during the talk, but insects are the base of the food chain for many birds and other wildlife. And I know people don't like, a lot of people think they don't like insects, but they're just really important and beautiful creatures. Plants are the base of the food chain for most insects, and exotic plants or non-native plants do not support native insect diversity that the native plants support. And we're covering this continent with exotic plants and thereby reducing the abundance and diversity of insects and the birds that depend upon them. So this is something we, with our own little backyards and little plots of land, can make a positive change by removing exotic plants, by choosing native plants, and by working towards diversity and structure that benefit wildlife. And if many, many people did this, it could have a major impact. In fact, the area of suburban yards and gardens is larger than all of our national parks combined. So people working together can really make a difference here. I'm starting out with songbirds because everybody loves to hear wrens sing in the springtime and loves songbirds. And baby birds are fed insects by their parents. That's what they're raised on. They don't get fed seeds and berries very much. Really, it's insects that are the foundational food for nestlings. And so songbirds depend upon an abundant supply of insects to raise their young. Okay, and I just have a bunch of cute pictures of birds. So bluebirds feeding their fledgling, a tree swallow looks like it's caught a damselfly, scissor-tailed flycatcher. These are all birds that we see around here. And I think that looks like an owl eating a cecropia moth. So all kinds of birds. And then this is a summer tanager. Don took this picture in our backyard. They really like eating our honeybees. And so really, birds that we all love to see require insects for food. This is also in our backyard. It's a little wren. They've nested in this box many times. And Don and I often sit out on the back deck and watch them. And literally every 1 to 2 minutes, they're bringing back a little caterpillar or something to feed their babies. So it's really important that we provide native shrubs and plants, because that's what our native insects eat and grow on, and that's what our birds need. It's all connected. This is nothing new. In 1962, Rachel Carson wrote an incredibly important book called Silent Spring. It was when we were using DDT a lot as an insecticide, pesticide, and bird populations absolutely crashed. And part of that was due to the fact that we were killing a lot of insects. Part of it, as you probably know, is due to the fact that DDT in birds weakens the eggshell. And so birds were not reproducing well, both because they didn't have food and because their eggshells were very brittle and fragile, thin. But anyway, this has been a concern for bird lovers for many, many, many years. Okay, I think almost everybody knows a monarch butterfly. One thing that people don't know about most of our insects is that they're very specific about what they can eat. So if you have a monarch larvae like this, you can't just feed it any old plant. Monarch larvae grow on milkweeds, and particularly our native milkweeds, which we have a lot of very, very beautiful species. So if you wanted to feed that monarch larvae an exotic plant, it would die. It just can't do it. They've evolved to eat native plants. This is another lovely butterfly, a zebra swallowtail. This is one of the creeks in Arkansas, and they eat pawpaws. So another lovely native understory plant. Their larvae have to have in order for us to have these beautiful zebra swallowtails. This is spicebush swallowtail caterpillar, totally cute little guy. They eat spicebush and sassafras, two more beautiful native understory plants that are very important to foster. The Cecropium moth larvae, I don't know if you've ever seen one, but they're pretty magnificent, and it's eating a native willow here. It eats several different native plants, but can't live on exotics. And here's the Cecropium moth, and you know, we're so fortunate to live in a world that has something like that in it. Okay, those are all dramatic ones. This is a slide Don made, Let Us Praise Little Brown Moths. I mean, a lot of birds rely on the abundance of little brown moths to keep them alive, and on the larvae of these moths. And they're all feeding on native plants. And one thing, I just putting in this little tiny plug about GMOs, because genetically modified corn is a native to North America. Corn earworms, probably all of you have had an ear of corn and found a corn earworm in it, and probably you weren't real happy about it. But actually, these corn earworms and their moths are hugely important to like nighthawks and a lot of different birds, and also bats. And so now that they're growing more and more genetically modified corn, there's not the abundance of these moths that there used to be, and this is actually a problem for birds and bats.
And that's because they're modified to resist pesticides.
Exactly. Yeah. To resist the caterpillars, yeah. So we know mankind is having a drastic effect on our planet. There's 37,000 square miles of U.S. is paved. That's 5 times the area of New Jersey. 62,000 square miles of lawn in the U.S. And lawn is a monoculture, which for most of our wildlife is really a wasteland. I mean, it doesn't support very much at all. So I'm not saying we shouldn't have lawns. I like lawns as much as anybody else, but we need to be mindful of having some diversity in our yards. Okay, and there it is, this absolutely beautiful planet where we live, and there's not any other place we can go. That's it, and we really need to take good care of it. So this is a lot about just loving our land and being good stewards. Okay, just showing you some pavement and Arkansas soybean field. I could have showed you pictures of cotton and rice and all kinds of things. A lot of our country has what we call monocultures, just one plant growing in large areas. And for wildlife, that's a wasteland. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have that. Obviously, we need these things to feed ourselves. But what I'm trying to help everybody see is that our own little plots of land, if we can make them really hospitable to nature, that's important because there's large areas that aren't hospitable to nature. Okay, so what am I talking about when I'm talking about alien invasive plants or non-native invasive plants? Everything has some value, and most plants were brought to this country for a reason. A lot of times it was like immigrants came here and they brought things that they loved from home. But what we're concerned about are plants whose negative traits outweigh their positive traits. So our concern is with aggressive, non-native, invasive plant species that did not share space and resources well, that are aggressive colonizers, and these plants diminish the vitality, health, and diversity of our native flora and fauna in Fayetteville. And I'm just going to be talking about, this is not comprehensive at all, but the plants that Don and I really notice a lot, and other people too, in Fayetteville would be bush honeysuckle, English ivy, privet, ailanthus, Japanese honeysuckle, some of the non-native euonymus, and Bradford pear. Okay, and I'll just talk about each one of those. So peonies are also a non-native plant, but they're fine. They're lovely. They don't spread. They don't take up a lot of room. I'm not saying you can't have non-native plants, but there's a few that really aren't very good. So bush honeysuckle is one that you've probably all seen a lot around here. It just forms huge thickets. It really takes over. It's from Asia. And this is a picture along the bike trail last February. Pretty much the entire understory there is bush honeysuckle. And one of the reasons that it's a problem plant is that it leaves out extremely early. So before most of the natives are starting to leaf out, it's already shading everything underneath it. So it has this sort of jump start on everything else. It also produces lots of berries, and each berry has multiple seeds. And it's truly invasive. So all of our beautiful understory plants like trillium and bloodroot and trout lilies, all these things like that, have just very much suffered from the presence of bush honeysuckle because of the way it shades everything out and just dominates the landscape. Okay, this is what they look like in the fall right now. You're probably seeing lots of this too. And these berries are not terribly nutritionally high value, but birds eat them because there's large areas where that's about all there is right now. And each berry has about 5 seeds in it. So birds eat them, they fly around, they poop out the seeds, and we have more bush honeysuckle than we could possibly want. Okay. While I'm on the topic of honeysuckle, I'll also talk about Japanese honeysuckle, which is a vining honeysuckle. And a lot of people love it because it's very fragrant. I like the fragrance too. But it's a plant that covers and smothers native vegetation. And there's areas, even like part of Wilson Park, where it's like you throw a blanket or a carpet over everything underneath it when bush honeysuckle goes, the vining honeysuckle grows there. And I've been visiting North Carolina a lot over the last couple of years because my mother's been unwell, and this is such a dominant plant that there are almost no understory plants in certain areas. It's all this crawling along the ground and vining up the trees. Okay, we have an absolutely gorgeous native trumpet honeysuckle. This is another vining honeysuckle. It doesn't compete well with the Japanese honeysuckle, but it's a lovely, wonderful plant. So if you can pull up the one and plant this one, you'll make the hummingbirds happy and make me happy.
And one thing about that, as wonderful as it is, it does not produce anything like the amount of seed that the Japanese does.
That's
so
exactly right.
I can never get seeds from part in our neighborhood because somebody eats them.
Somebody eats it. That's right. Well, it's a native plant. That's right. That's right. So it's a great plant, and it's not invasive. All right, another major invasive.
You should go back one, I think.
No, I did go back one. I think I did. Yeah, I think I'm okay. This is English ivy. Some people think it looks really romantic. For myself, when I see that, I think I'm witnessing a murder. Because English ivy strangles its host plants. It competes for resources with them, for water, sunlight, and nutrients. And it burdens the trees with extra mass and leaf surface. And one thing that we noticed during that ice storm is that around the Wilson Park neighborhood, there's a lot of trees with English ivy on them, and they took a brutal amount of damage because they were just so weighed down. English ivy doesn't actually seed very much when it's crawling along the ground, but once it gets high up in the tree, it produces lots of berries and seeds, and they're dispersed widely by birds. It's a very aggressive invader, and one thing that worries me about it is that it can invade both sunny open areas and our forests, and it's really a problem plant. Okay, and then this is another picture. This is at Wilson Park of a tree with some English ivy on it. At this point, it's very doable to cut that off, pull it off. Once it's totally strangling the tree, it's harder to deal with. So if you have English ivy starting up some of your trees, go ahead and snip it off at the bottom and pull it off and protect your trees, because...
What kind of tree is that?
That is an oak.
It is.
Yeah. But they'll grow on any kind of tree. Okay, privet. This is a plant that I'm sure Europeans brought over because they used it a lot for hedges. And Don and I were in England this May, and I noticed that privet hedges there are extremely well behaved. I mean, they don't grow enormous, they don't spread everywhere, they do keep them pruned. But privet, for some reason here, just gets humongous, it seeds everywhere. These are privet berries, and you'll be seeing them all over. And these also, although they're not highly nutritious, birds eat them because it's what's around. And they're coming up all over. And this is something that small privet plants are pretty easy to pull up, and it's just really, really worth trying to stay on top of them if you have them in your yard. All right, these are some Bradford pears that have been replaced by better plants at Wilson Park, and I'm happy about that. Bradford pears are beautiful in the springtime when they bloom, but they are considered a really a nuisance plant. They're extremely cheap and easy for nurseries to mass produce, and so nurseries make a lot of money selling them. But they're brittle, they're really aggressive colonizers, they spread rapidly throughout the countryside, and they crowd out native trees. And one thing that Don and I are really happy about in Fayetteville, in this area, is that there's been a number of prairie restoration projects, like out at Lake Fayetteville and Woolsey Prairie. And the very first thing that they have to do when they're trying to restore land to native prairie plants is go in and cut out a lot of Bradford pears. They're also called calorie pears. So
another thing that really annoys me about the ones in my backyard that I haven't cut out yet is you try to, like a crepe myrtle, if you don't constantly cut them back at the base, they turn into a bush. Mm-hmm. And then it just spreads from there by runners continually. Yeah. So I have one that the guy planted in our yard before we bought our house because he thought, oh, that's the thing to do. And I hate it. I hate to kill plants, but it's time.
That's one to kill. That's a good one to kill. It really is. Okay, and then this is a plant that I didn't even really know about until maybe a year and a half ago, because they're just starting to take off in Fayetteville. But this is an ailanthus. It's not a great photo, but I have some other photos of it. And they're from China. They're sometimes called tree of heaven. Other people think they should be called tree of hell. And also stink plant. They have a very acrid odor to them. If any of you have read A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, this is the tree. It's something that will grow anywhere. Super aggressive colonizer, spreads by seeds and spreads vegetatively, crowds out native vegetation. It's also allelopathic, which means that it produces chemicals that inhibit the growth of other plants. So it's like it's sitting there poisoning all of its neighbors. The pollen is highly allergenic. On a scale of 1 to 10, 9.5. I mean, it's really, really, a lot of people are allergic to the pollen of this. It also has extremely aggressive root growth, and the roots clog septic systems and crack sidewalks and crack foundations. And I would really hate to see this tree get seriously established in Fayetteville. It's starting to, because it's very nasty, and we'll tell you some stories about trying to get rid of it on our property. This is another picture of ailanthus. One thing that's interesting about it is it has, this is one leaf. They're really, really long, and I'm suddenly drawing a blank on what you call them. Pinnate. Yeah, thank you. Pinnate leaves. So it's got these huge pinnate leaves. If you want me to pass it around, you can smell it. It has a very acrid smell if you rub the leaves, and that's one of the ways it's helpful to figure out, because it looks a little bit like walnut, but the leaves are much bigger than walnut. And, oops, I think I could just miss a photo. Hang on one sec. Okay. When the leaves fall off in the fall, they leave this very distinctive heart-shaped scar. And so even in the winter, you should be able to recognize an ailanthus. If you're thinking, I think I might have some of that on my property, and you see those scars, that's an ailanthus, and winter's a good time to cut them down. This is the mom. I mean, this is a giant ailanthus behind the IGA parking lot over, between College and Washington. And I really think it's seeding a lot. These things produce huge numbers of seeds, and the seeds have a very high germination rate. And just over the last few years, in my neighborhood and over in the historic neighborhood and up on Mount Sequoia, we're seeing a lot of these. And I'm kind of holding this plant somewhat responsible. But,
and I guess the owner
may not even know that they have
right.
it, would be my guess. I know. Probably try to talk to them. Okay, just real quickly, multiflora roses. I don't think you see these too much in Fayetteville. They're roses that have little clusters of white flowers in the spring, and then they produce these little red hips. Unstoppable growth habit. They form impenetrable thickets that excludes native plants and actually native animals. They are a mess. And Don and I bought 7 acres of land out in Westbrook about 2.5 years ago, and the whole first winter, this is what we did. We cut out multiflora roses. We had pretty good success in limiting them, but they're another good one to get rid of. And fortunately, this is not what Fayetteville looks like yet. There is one area out towards Lake Weddington and another on Route 45 towards Goshen, no, past Goshen, maybe towards Huntsville, where you'll see kudzu. This is an incredibly dangerous plant. I mean, it's like it throws a blanket or a carpet over every native. You can see all those trees are dying, and there's no understory at all. We don't want to let that get started here.
I can tell you that it's not as bad as it used to be. When I was in high school, we used to go out to Savoy and Weddington and kind of tromp around out and all that stuff. And our phrase for it was kudzu, and kudzu shall inherit the earth. Yeah. But it's not as bad as it used to be. They've been killing it back.
They sprayed out there, I know they have. But anyway, when I go to North Carolina, I do see areas like this. And this little figure down at the bottom, that it's spreading at a rate of 150,000 acres per year in America, that's a scary figure. So it's one thing, you see it, you cut it down right away, spray it. Okay, so tools of the trade. I have this little pouch, and I have my clippers. Yeah, good flare clippers, and I've got this little steel folding saw. This is my all-time favorite tool. Okay, and you can really do a lot with those two things.
Well, mostly in Wilson Park?
Mostly, no. I'm doing it on land that we own. But I wouldn't mind doing it. Something's there. Anyway, a folding saw, sharp clippers, protective gloves, and a tree and shrub guide so you really know what, that you're taking out the right thing. Those are all good ideas. And then this is a weed wrench that the city of Fayetteville has a couple of, and they will loan them out to people who are trying to dig up invasive like bush honeysuckle. A couple summers ago, we worked on the Frisco Trail, part of the bike trail system, with Nancy Varble and a bunch of other volunteers, and we use these weed wrenches to pull up privets, and they really work. Not for huge bushes, but for modest-sized bushes, they really work.
Well, that's not necessarily the biggest weed you can get. We've got one that's the largest.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
And it'll pull something with a trunk this big at the ground.
Wow.
And sometimes Lauren, who's smaller than I am, she does this thing herself. And sometimes the root balls are this big, especially
Wow,
this down
that's
road.
impressive.
So it gets almost all the root. It
Yeah,
breaks
it's
off
really a great
bits,
tool. It really
But
is.
it's a big start of the movement.
That's right. It's a great tool.
And we will lend it out.
Okay, that's great
those
to
who
know.
have some.
That's great to know. Okay, this is just me in my deer season regalia with my pouch. And one thing is, if you remove non-natives, you're going to want to fill in with native plants. And depending upon where you live, sometimes you have to fence them in initially to protect them from deer. That's certainly true out on our property at West Fork. It really depends upon what part of Fayetteville. But we can tell you a really easy and cheap way to fence in if you're wanting to know that. Okay, so what would we replace them with? Birds love dogwoods. They're beautiful, beautiful native trees and shrubs. There's multiple dogwoods that we have in Fayetteville. So this is a flowering dogwood that everybody thinks about, but there's also more shrubby dogwoods like rough-leaf dogwood and silky dogwood, which is also known as swamp dogwood. They're all beautiful. The berries are really popular with birds. They're a great understory plant. Hollies are another wonderful plant, and there's a number of native hollies to this area. So this is American holly. The cedar waxwings and robins, they just go crazy over it. They really love it, and it provides a lot of shelter to insects like the holly flowers. This is a possum haw, which is a deciduous holly. Really, really gorgeous plant. Native, does very well around here. In fact, at the farmer's market a week ago,
Celebration of trees.
the celebration of trees, they were giving away possum haws. Gorgeous, gorgeous plants. And they do very, very well around here. So here's a cedar waxwing eating possum haws.
Those guys can come in and strip a whole tree.
They can. I know they can. They love them.
Just hordes of them. They'll come
But
in.
what a
and
fun thing to
no
see.
berries. Poof.
Yes, it's true. And then Yukon holly is another native, very beautiful holly. So we've got good hollies. Here's a bluebird feeding on Yukon. And this is in the Wilson Park neighborhood, just an absolutely gorgeous, big old American holly. Okay, buttonbush is another beautiful native shrub. They grow maybe about 5 feet tall and 7 feet round. They have a very beautiful form, and they have these funny round blooms that are really cute and really popular with butterflies and honeybees. And they like moisture, but they'll grow in dry areas. There's one growing right over by Washington School and that car parts place, and I wouldn't have thought it'd do well there, but it does great there. So this is something I'm very excited about. I'm somebody who pores over shrub and tree books, and I've always wanted to see a wahoo. It's a native euonymus, native burning bush, and I had never seen one. And then this last weekend we were over in Oklahoma, and I found a whole patch of them. So brought one home and planted it, and so there are native euonymuses that are very beautiful. And another great plant, this is Carolina buckthorn. It's a shrub or small tree. Birds love it. In fact, the berries are delicious. Donna and I like eating them too. Let me show you. Has very pretty shiny leaves, blackberries in the fall, yellow leaves in the fall. Just a glorious plant. And that bottom left picture doesn't show up very well, but that's a photo of Carolina buckthorn with privet growing through it.
Oh.
And, you know, I'm afraid if we don't fight with privet, that's going to be the future of our buckthorns. I don't know, but that one's holding its own, but I think it's going to have troubles if privet gets larger. So, a great plant. And then this is one of my all-time favorite plants. This is spice bush. It has beautiful bloom in the spring. It's incredibly fragrant. It has lovely berries. Birds adore them. Spice bush swallowtail, those beautiful butterflies, their larvae grow on these. And then in the fall, it's a golden, just a great plant.
Is that one that's named with a particular state? I know there's Kentucky, there's Carolina spice bush.
No, it's just called Lindera benzoides. They're very common in healthy, I mean, when we bought this second 7 acres out in West Fork, we weren't really able to look at it because it was a foreclosure and kind of a difficult situation. And so we didn't know until after we bought it that we have this huge amount of spice bush. I mean, I just cried for joy when I saw that. So And this is just shows spicebush caterpillars on the spicebush, and then the spicebush swallowtail. They're very cute caterpillars. Okay, sumac is another great one. Up on the top, we have fragrant sumac, which they're using a lot at Wilson Park right now. It's a great ground cover, really, really nice plant. And then some of the other sumacs, like smooth sumac. Fantastic fall color. Birds love those berries. You know, they're not necessarily, I mean, the smooth one isn't really that elegant a plant, maybe, but it's a great plant. I like seeing it.
If I may interject
Yes.
here, being an arty, I grew up making a tea with the flowering heads. It tastes like pink lemonade if you just soak it. It's like a sun tea.
Yeah.
And if you put it in boiling water and steep it, it tastes like apple cider. It's very high in vitamin C. It's got a great flavor.
I think that's right. And that's one of the reasons the birds love those berries
And
so
yet,
much.
something else is, I have property outside of Winslow, and I'm thinking about intentionally growing a large crop of sumac because it's becoming very popular as a substitute for what's used in red curry. And it's a plant that sumac is being cultivated in the United States now for the Oriental market.
Go for it, because it's a great, great plant. It's a great plant. Okay, and then here are a couple more great native plants. Up on the upper left, that's coralberry. It's like tough as nails. I mean, it doesn't get very high, probably about 3 feet high. The last 2 years we've had this heat and drought, and it still produced a great crop of berries. Don just took that photo on our property a little bit ago. I love it. Don thinks we have too much of it, but I think it's a great plant. It is very good for erosion control. We have a steep hillside, and then the beautyberry, just a gorgeous native plant. I think everybody should have some of that.
And the white one is the same, has the same benefits?
Excuse me?
The white berry has the same benefits?
You know, I don't know.
I mean,
Oh, the
grows the
beauty
same.
berry.
Oh, yeah, I have one. It's a white beauty bush.
I bet
It's
so.
a red beauty bush. And they look exactly the same except for the different colors.
Okay, I didn't know about that. Yeah, probably. I would think so. Okay, this is just a little reminder that having healthy plant structure around streams is important for fish, and also, of course, a lot of fish like trout feed on insects. So insects need a better rap in this country. So here we go. What we can do to help insects and birds in Fayetteville. So eliminate the highly invasive exotic plants. And these are the ones, Don made this slide a few years ago. These are the ones he recommends killing on site. Bush honeysuckle, privet, English ivy, kudzu, ailanthus, Japanese honeysuckle, and Bradford pear. And then replace them with native species like hollies, dogwoods, Carolina buckthorn, pawpaw, sassafras, spicebush, sumacs, and I think I have another row that doesn't show up, which has beautyberry and coralberry. And then I'm just going to close with a few photos of some of the prairie restoration projects that are going on in northwest Arkansas. And one of the, I mean, I highly recommend that you go look at some of these places because they're incredibly beautiful, and you'll see a diversity and sort of harmony of plant life there that you just don't normally see. So on the upper left is Baker Prairie, and the split-beard bluestem, which is a native, very, very beautiful native grass, that was growing out at the Lake Fayetteville Prairie Restoration. And our native grasses, I could do a whole other talk on them because they're also really, really important, and we've pretty much, there's not much of them left. Okay, so, but they're very, animals like quail depend upon native grasses because our native grasses are bunch grasses rather than like lawn grasses, and the quail can run along between the bunches and eat the seeds and have a place to raise their young and to hide out. And then I'm just ending with a couple of beautiful photos because Promethea moths, this is one of Don's photos of a mating pair of Promethea moths. I mean, what a beautiful world we live in. And Luna moth, same thing.
You might make the point about their inability to feed when they become.
When they're adults, that's
Yeah,
right. It's just the larvae. That's right.
that's
That's right. It's with a lot of these big Saturnian moths. It's just the larvae that eat, and then once they, you know, go through metamorphosis and become moths, then their thing is to they don't eat. They mate, and the females lay eggs, and
They just get right to business.
yeah, they get right to business. That's right. So, okay, so in conclusion, we can make Fayetteville richer in birds, butterflies, and other wildlife by removing exotic plants of little value and replacing them with native plants or non-invasive exotic plants that provide nectar and fruits for wildlife. I have to say, I'm really in favor of native plants, but there are beautiful exotic plants too that are worthy of planting. We can reduce lawns of grass monocultures and replace with wildflowers, native grasses, and structure for wildlife to survive. Because you know, all birds need nesting sites, and that's another great thing about hollies. I mean, one alien invasive animal we have is cats. And I like cats, but they do kill a lot of birds, and birds really need safe places to make their nests. So. And then in doing so, we could help create mini wildlife preserves that help wildlife survive. And one thing that Talamy says, I think I said this before, is that this would create the largest wildlife preserve in the world if we all worked on this together. And we can't just rely on our national parks to be a safe place for wildlife. We really need to make corridors for them and work on making our individual homes and yards hospitable. Okay, that's it.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Would you have a list perhaps of suggested plants?
I do, and I also, yeah, in fact, I have some handouts I can give you. I don't know, you probably are familiar with all these things. I mean, I brought some English ivy and honeysuckle and privet and vining honeysuckle, and then I have a couple books that I really highly recommend. I mean, this one, Bringing Nature Home, you all can look at it when you're done if you want.
And it's got a great list of host plants and
It
various
really
butterflies
does.
and things.
And then this is a great book. It's called Native Alternatives to Invasive Plants. Super, super book. And then this is just my handy dandy guide to trees, shrubs, and vines in Arkansas. It's really just basic, good book. But Don made this handout and it's actually on the City of Fayetteville website. And since there's so few of you, this is a Missouri publication. It's really, really a great one. Curse of the Bush Honeysuckle. But it has suggestions about how to take them out and then what other things. So do you want me to pass these around? I'll do it.
Sure.
Okay, here, you can pass those around. To keep one if you'd like. And then these also.
Has one of these.
Fortunately for you, you're kind of preaching to the choir around here.
Yeah, I know.
Every time we can get this kind of presentation on television, on public access and support, the better.
Yeah, I think so too.
And this will be on YouTube in a few days.
Good.
And something else that was really startling to me, it kind of put things in perspective, was the largest agricultural expenditure in the United States per year is spent on trying to make a lawn green and monoculture.
That's
and
right.
it's, there's nothing pouring the money in the hole of green.
Yeah.
We'll probably do better there, be some compost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. So, well, thank you for coming and listening.
Sure, thanks for
Well,
your
wonder if you guys have heard or read about people advocating using vinegar to help kill invasive
I have heard
instead
of
of Roundup or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know how it works.
Yeah, it may
I wanna
work.
try it.
It'd be fun to try. We really try not to use chemicals very much, but there. Oh, I meant to tell you about ailanthus because that's been one of the hardest battles we fought was there were some against ailanthus because that's a plant that not only does it have pollen that's highly allergenic, but we had skin allergies and actually sort of when we were working on it, we both felt like we needed to wear a mask. And
Sap will get you just about like poison ivy.
it will. It's really toxic.
They
It's
said in one
scary.
report that it can actually, I mean, I don't know if you have to ingest it or what, but it can cause heart attacks even. So you want to be careful of that ailanthus plant.
But it's another good reason to try to get it out of here. But anyway, so what we did is we ended up girdling and cutting like a wide swath of the bark off, and we did herbicide that like crazy because it's just not something that you want around. So.
Now, the Bringing Nature Home is available at night for
Yes.
anybody. You can pull that up. Okay. for
You made your home.
camera up there for the
Oh, sorry.
folks at home.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then this one is Brooklyn Botanic Garden Guide, Native Alternatives to Invasive Plants. This is another excellent book.
Have to order it online.
Probably have to order it, but it's a good book.
And there are lots of books on grasses and
Yeah.
some of the prairie grasses, that sort of thing.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you
You know,
so much.
we've been Fayetteville residents for 23 years, and we really think the neighborhoods have to get involved in this fight because it's a citywide problem, and if all the neighborhood associations would get involved, it'll start having an impact.
Well, it's a tough fight, but now that the city has started encouraging this in the last 3 or 4 years, to use native grass, use native species of every kind, and there's actually not just get your yard certified by National Wildlife Federation, but also there's a city, was it resolution or ordinance that says you can stop mowing if you put in wasting money and all the things that go into a lawn, if you, well, it came before the Habitat project.
Yeah, but you have certain species and
Well,
then you can,
yeah, you put in native species.
you can let it go
Yeah.
native,
Eliminate the things, so.
which is
Fayetteville's
great.
done a
Yeah,
lot
I'm a big
in the last
believer
4
in
years
that.
to accommodate doing this, if we can get people to believe in it, because a lot of people really feel that lawn is a necessity, and they have a moral imperative to mow it, and encourage it to grow some more as fast
Well,
as
you know,
possible.
I mean, when you're raising kids, it's nice to have an area of lawn,
play.
but our backyard's pretty wild, and our kids had a lot of fun in it.
Yeah.
I grew up playing in ditches, so
Yeah, that's right, that's
playing on
right,
the edge of town in the woods, so.
that's right. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, question from Lindsay.
This committee also really has a direct line to our Parks and Recreation Department as well. So I'm writing, so Wilson Park, I'm gonna call the director tomorrow. So, Bonnie,
You know her,
Honeysuckle.
Lisa?
Oh, Lisa Netherland,
Yeah.
Connie Edmondson.
Oh, okay,
But
okay,
Lisa
okay.
could do, yeah, and so actually any of you could actually mention that and say, I noticed the invasive species take over because they get it.
Because there is some ailanthus there,
yeah.
that really.
Because when you have a lot of land, like Fayetteville does, land preservation and everything, and then you have, you know, a department that takes care of all, 70 parks and everything, it's always helpful to have the public's eye on it, particularly experts like yourself, because certainly the citizens would never want some, you know, like transportation department trolling the streets to see if there's a crack in the sidewalk. I mean,
Right.
it's obvious that it's good to have that feedback.
It's good to have feedback, yeah, I
And so,
agree.
like English ivy on that tree, I'm gonna mention
Good.
that, and then finding honeysuckle. Do you know of any other ones like in our parks? Something
Well,
to watch out?
Wilson Park, there is one little area where there's a patch of ailanthus coming on, so that I was concerned about that too.
Is that Walker?
Excuse me?
Is that Walker?
You know,
We haven't been down
I
there.
haven't been down there
I
that
think you would
much.
find a lot that would need to be addressed.
You probably
That's been
would.
There it is.
cleared and-
Well, the difficulty, most of it's just right in the riparian zone, because they built a trail years ago through Walker Park, and they mow right up to it, they traditionally have, so even under the streamside protection ordinance, the city's grandfathered in to continue doing in the riparian zone what they've been doing, or in the extended riparian. So,
Well, in a
So they
couple
have
of
a-
decades back, they were busy planting Bradford pears and stuff
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that around here.
We should go walk down there, we haven't done that, but that'd be good to do. I appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for sharing
Thank
with
you
us.
for your time.
thank you.
Sorry,
that's really.
Have a
God.
good meeting.
You too.
Okay.
Don's on
No recycle money.
the tree and landscape, it's now called urban,
Very good.
urban forestry board.
Thanks.
Take care.
Last month, we had a mayoral forum, and when I was at that event, which was, I felt like it was pretty successful, met Ms. Talley, Ms. Alex Talley, and she is going to be our new U of A liaison, and I wondered, if Alex, if you'd care to toot your horn a little bit for us?
I'll try. I'm Alex. I'm a junior for the university. I serve as the liaison to off-campus students for the Associated Student Government. I serve on cabinet, so I was appointed for this position. And my goal is really just to hear y'all's concerns about students in your neighborhoods and see if there's a positive way we can approach it and see if there's any way we can improve the situation and just to voice students' concerns to y'all. That's really what my goal is for this year.
Well, we hope you'll come every month and
That's the goal.
have a little something for us, something to present. Now we have to do a little bit of work here.
Housekeeping.
We have to talk about nominating officers. And I'd like to appoint a committee of 3 to come up with nominations for chair, vice chair, and secretary by next November. And the names, whether Aubrey's pointing to the right people or
I'm
not,
trying to point at people that
on
respond
my list
positively.
are, I won't tell you their names, but their initials are Mike Ehrig, Aubrey James Shepard, and Stanley Lancaster. That's 3 community pillars here who can hopefully get their heads together. And Stan never makes it over to the senior center, but some of the rest of us do.
My time's coming. I'll be 60 next month. So.
All good. Congratulations.
It's better than the alternative.
It is much better.
We'd like to have a nice fat quorum next month. Does anyone know the exact date in December? We have to parse through that probably a little bit. Think when we can meet.
Oh, you were talking about November.
That's right, I'm skipping November. We need to meet in November, the last Thursday in November.
Okay, that'll be the 29th? Is that what's?
I think that's right.
Is that
Is
during
that the
Thanksgiving
thing?
vacation week?
Yeah, I think that's the one that's the Thanksgiving night. And then I
We
got with the
won't do
clerk.
that.
Yeah, and so what I did with the.
We talked about that before, I forgot, it seemed like we had this
Yeah,
conversation.
you did.
Where
The
did it
city
go?
clerk
What did we
had
decide?
reserved the one before, which I think was the
22nd.
21st.
The
Okay.
22nd.
So that's the
Um,
Thursday before.
the Thursday
next to
before.
last Thursday.
And so what she did, Sandra Smith, put it on the calendar. So it's up to you if you want to meet next month or not. I know with the elections and everything, I think it's important. But she went ahead and reserved the date pending whatever you
Do we
decide.
have any discussion on 22nd of November?
Will this be our
Every
potluck
We better have a
as
potluck.
well? Our holiday potluck too?
I have no objection to that.
I would think so, because we have a problem about ever having a December meeting. And so if we go ahead and use the 22nd as our
Election and holiday.
holiday potluck for various holidays in November, December, and be ready to elect people. So that would suggest to me that we need to really get the word out to the members of neighborhood associations to get a person in here to represent them.
Yeah, we could have a groundswell of opinion and bring forth more candidates even than we've seen in the last year or so. So that sounds grand. I'm looking forward to that.
I'll make a motion that we do that.
I'll
The motion.
Motion and second that we have a nice potluck next November 22nd, and the committee will recommend for officers to be elected at that time, and we'll spread the word and get some good attendance. They can signify by saying aye.
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 All right.
Anyone opposed?
Well, I think the 22nd is Thanksgiving.
It's what?
Thanksgiving.
Is the 22nd Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or, so do we want to do,
Then what's the problem with doing it?
Are you sure?
29th?
Then it's
I
good
Googled
then.
it.
We gotta check this on the calendar.
figure out which one's Thanksgiving and we'll do the one after it or before it accordingly.
Well, if it's the 22nd, we need to go ahead and have it on the 29th.
I have it on good
Because their city
authority.
meetings conflict on
Because
the
I thought that was my
30th.
Thanksgiving break.
Well, let me talk a little bit, while we're getting more info, let me talk a little bit about registration. Renewal of neighborhood memberships. These are due annually, October is the month to renew your membership, your people who are on your list of members in your neighborhoods. And we're pretty far into October here, so it's a very timely thing to think about. Reactivate some of these associations, and some issues will arise, and we'll be glad to hear the voices of those speaking out on those issues that are coming along. Do we have any neighborhood updates? What's been going on over in your neighborhood?
Town Rush neighborhood, well, we're looking forward to the second Saturday in November when the Regional National Cemetery Improvement Corporation sponsors the 5K run, starting at the National Cemetery, going to the downtown area and looping back there. And it's always got some exciting door prizes, and if you win in your, well, the first 3 places, I believe, in each age group, and there are a lot of age groups. The nice thing, instead of a trophy that you don't have room for on your desk, you get a dog tag, a military dog tag replica with what place you got, males and females, whatever age group, and it just hangs on a regular little chain the way they do, and it's so much easier to utilize and brag on instead of saying, look at this.
Yeah.
And cheaper too, so. But they are unique probably in racing as far as we know, and you'll also get some other goodies. And right after the election, I'll begin to help with raising gathering the stuff that you may get as a door prize just for money. That will be on November the 10th, the second Saturday. It's been there. This will be the 4th year for it. Also, you'll get a week out T-shirt with sponsors' names and the event name on the front. So it's worth the entry fee. Just what you will get free.
Don, how about over Route?
Things are pretty quiet in Route School Neighborhood Association. We like that.
There's quite a bit of new construction infill in Jennings Plus. You should come down and cruise through and see some of the interesting new buildings that are being built down there. Pretty active. Mike? Alex, got anything going on in your neighborhood?
No, I live in an apartment complex. Nothing too exciting.
And what neighborhood is that?
I live in the Grove, so.
Oh, you're in the Grove.
I don't know the neighborhood that qualifies as, but.
It may be.
She's in Jennings Plus, isn't she, or is she in yours?
She's in my neighborhood.
Yeah, she's in your neighborhood.
Yeah, but she's a student representative, so
right.
University. But the Grove is on old land that was supposed to be the expansion of the National Cemetery. You notice how close you are to it.
Yes.
And we used to park on some of that land where it is. And I'm probably going to go and ask if your management will allow us to have people who are there for the race to park on the back lot. A lot of students can go on that weekend. Maybe.
I'm not very athletic, so not my forte.
Well, you should recruit for us for that. If I get you some brochures.
I'll pass them out.
Okay.
Now, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You're in the apartment complex there, the new one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever see students stand out in the rain waiting for the bus to come by?
Yeah, well, we don't get a bus to
You
the
don't
Grove.
get a bus.
So people walk to the intersection of Hill and MLK.
All the way over there.
Mm-hmm.
And
But yeah,
stand
just
in the
stand
rain
in
and wait
the
for the
rain.
bus?
Mhm.
I passed the apartment complex down there, which for the life of me, I'm tongue-tied, I can't remember the name.
Hill Place is right across the street from them.
Well, now this one is out by the baseball field. The great big one out there.
I can never move that one there.
The new one they're building, or are you talking about that one that's?
No, it's been there a year or so now.
Oh,
it's out there by Baum Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. I'm tongue-tied too. I can't call you the name of it.
Well,
Anyway, I noticed as I came to this meeting there were students out there from that complex standing in the rain waiting for the bus. My wipers was just getting with it, you know. They were standing there wretchedly in the rain. I wish they would build a shelter of some sort for those poor students.
As I was mentioning him, if the highway, I think there's I think it actually is a statute, but the highway department won't let, because it, like MLK is a highway, and just
He's
like
talking
any
about,
other.
he's talking about
This
over on
on
15th.
Oh, okay.
15th to 18th Street.
You know where 15th goes around and
And
curves
15th's
around
not
on
a highway,
Beechwood?
right? Good.
No.
No,
Well,
15th.
yeah, 15th is a
What is
state
it,
highway.
15th?
too.
15th, Beechwood, 18th. Is that what it does?
Uh-huh, yeah.
15th, Beechwood, and
And 18th.
It curves around from 15th Street to Beechwood to 18th. And then it goes around back by the interstate.
Sometime back I came through there and it was just raining merrily, you know, viciously I'd say. Anyway, and about 40 students out there waiting for the bus. Go down there.
Not
I
an
felt so sorry
umbrella
for 'em.
amongst them, huh?
Well, if you grew up in a city that was large enough to have transit service of some kind, when we did in the 40s, that's what you did. You walked to the bus and you stood there, and there weren't any shelters, but it would have been nice.
Now I did admire,
Fort
they
Smith
had
has
the little,
bus shelters.
carport, you might say, for the mailboxes,
Mhm.
but not for the inhabitants.
Look, you got a mailbox shelter, but no bus shelter.
Right.
Okay, got you.
Now, have you noticed the bus shelter down next to the high rise?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a beautiful thing. Anyway, it would be nice to have one or two of those out there at each apartment complex in town.
Well, Mike, don't you think if we'd been able to pass that transit tax last spring, we might have been able to get more shelters built for the bus passengers?
I have a differing point of view, if you'll allow it.
Oh,
The amount of money that those apartment complexes generate, they could very well build some of those.
well, let's try to encourage the city council the planning commission to encourage the developers to do it before they start building. That's when there's some clout to get it done. As you know.
Why don't we make it a condition of building that the apartment people put those in?
I would certainly agree with that. I hope we could get somebody like
The
planning
expense is
commissioners
very
to
little
support.
compared to the amount of revenue generated per apartment complex.
Mhm.
I agree.
Those apartments are cheap, aren't they? Like $300 a month or something like that.
Mine's not, but mine are furnished.
Anyway, they have a generous revenue stream.
Well, that's a good point. I guess the mechanism for getting that message to council or the people who advise council, maybe Ms. Smith could help us think about how we would go about that. Just by mentioning it in this meeting and getting it in her notes.
I don't know who ended up taking Phil Humphrey's place with Ozark Regional Transit, but it would be linked to bus routes. Ozark Regional Transit and Razorback Transit tend to work together when they have the particular stops. Like we got a bench, and actually our transportation department worked on it. It was across from Hillcrest Towers. Of course, right when that went in, then what was it, 5 months, then the shelter one was moved on down, so now there's just a little bench there. So it really does tie into those private entities. While the city pays money to the bus, you know, for transit, we pay them, but they have a lot of control on where it is. And I know Phil was working on even changing some state laws and everything, but he's not with us anymore. And he was really pushing things like that. We did get a shelter up at the mall. We got one out at Hillcrest Towers. And a lot of it too is if it's more, I mean, if you're really looking at strategy to make it happen, if you have a lot of students and the university is interested in, you know, off-campus pleasurable experiences, then I would have the students there speak to Ozark Transit. They work right together with, I mean, not Ozark Transit, but Razorback Transit.
Yeah.
And they may right now be actually, who knows, they could be even working on a plan. So a lot of it's really finding out that information and finding where you have the advocacy on there. Funding, of course, then that can come in from various places. But a lot of times, even if you have the money, if you don't have, you know, the companies that are actually transporting on wherever the stops are, it might not work.
Yeah, that's Thanksgiving. Did you find that one Thanksgiving?
Yes, I did find that out. Alex is correct. We're fine for November. Actually, Richard and I have been working with the city clerk on next year, so it's a problem for next year. And you might not be sure, so you don't have to, maybe not worry about it. Who knows?
Well, I can still worry.
So
I don't worry.
Yeah.
So the meeting
So
now
we're good
is
for November.
November
Thursday.
the
29th.
fourth Thursday is
The last Thursday.
It's the last Thursday.
Yeah,
It'd be the
it's,
So that
fifth,
means-
it'd be the fifth Thursday in this case.
In this case,
Business
and so the
as
22nd
As
is
in here,
Thanksgiving.
still.
And who's bringing the fried chicken?
I can, but I was thinking of maybe something more like from the barbecue joint, but
Oh,
whatever's appropriate, I
Pops is closed.
can do that. November
We look at
29th, election,
B&B is close to him, so.
That's right.
And now it's Bears.
so let's reaffirm that November 29th is our election and our potluck.
Right, on
Register
to
that.
my neighborhood update.
Yes,
So we
sir.
can finish that out. If they get it done by January, it will only have taken 2 years, which I guess is not bad in the scheme of things, but they've been out painting my road, my ditch, my yard with spray paint, because the city claims that they're gonna finish the Morningside sidewalk.
Arkansas One Call's been calling.
So what not?
Arkansas One Call has been out locating.
Oh, yes,
That's what that's.
Living on call.
yes, they've been out there, so I take that as a sign of encouragement.
Flores and
I
orange.
thought that was finished already.
Blue,
Well,
orange,
it is up
yellow.
to where the sidewalk ends. And then,
White.
And then it was Fayetteville tax revenue was going to finish it from the corner of Fair Lane up to Morningside to 6th Street, MLK, or 16, or Huntsville. But they, didn't have the money.
2 blocks, 3 blocks short, wasn't it?
No, not even 2 blocks. It's a long block, about a block and a half.
Okay.
Fluorescent orange is communications, red is electric, blue is water, green is sewer, yellow is gas.
Correct.
Quite a bit going on down underground. Ms. Lindsley, did you have any other items on your short list?
Just what you asked me to talk about.
Well, one thing was to let people
Yes.
understand how to get to their registered neighborhood association form, which I'm assuming is somewhere in the vast arena of Access Fayetteville.
Yes, it is. And I also have, I brought some copies here, and actually I have some other ones on the copy machine if you have not done that. So far, I've received Sang Valley's and Hendricks, Maxwell, and Stevens. So if you're not one of those two, then you need to get them in. It does state in section 4.04, every neighborhood with full membership shall annually re-register. In order to re-register by the end of October of each year, each neighborhood shall submit the information or qualifications as listed above to the outreach coordinator,
We've got a new,
etc.
we probably need to edit this, then the outreach coordinator.
Is
And I'll
that
talk about that.
in the bylaws of this committee, or is this in something that was in the ordinance?
That's in the bylaws.
It's in the bylaws.
So it's just in the bylaws?
Yeah.
The thing about that is that becomes an excuse for people not, they don't go to the trouble to do that, and they think, well, we just won't bother with it.
Just register.
Well, I'm saying, but if we need to encourage people to do it, but I'm not sure that it's encouraging people to do it or to get involved by having this thing. You've got to do it every year, you know.
I mean, there is a reality if you look at other cities and what the challenges are. They were very similar. They solved some of theirs by changing their bylaws. But, I mean, if neighborhood associations looked at this, you know, they must also be composed of at least 20 households or accounting for at least 25% of the households in the area. If you don't even qualify for that one prong, then you cannot send a member to the council, and then you cannot vote. I mean, when you really look at this, and I've studied this
It makes sense.
recently.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very tough one, and so, but you also don't want to be a council that has absolutely no authority, that does not have that legitimacy. So it is I think always right. It is worth considering in
Something to look at in the coming years.
in this decade.
Probably be wise to keep in mind the idea of it being a forum. I keep coming back to that word and the sense of that usage and understanding about what we're for, why we're here, what we try to do. Just be available for the conversations that need to take place due to whatever is currently
To solve
going
problems in neighborhoods.
on.
That's what is in the mission statement.
Yeah.
too.
So.
That's us.
Yeah.
Then, anybody got anything else they want to talk about?
Did I mention briefly?
Something further, sorry.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to also follow up with that the new community outreach coordinator will be Dee Dee Peters. Are you familiar with Dee Dee already?
No.
She is wonderful, and I think she'll be a great asset to FCON. I think she also, she is a member of the Washington Willow neighborhood. She's knowledgeable about neighborhoods. She's currently doing a similar job with outreach and volunteerism, communication, design, etc., with Crystal Bridges right now. She was a founding member and secretary for a 3-year term on the Fayetteville Arts Council. She partnered with city administration and Fayetteville Forward and the Fayetteville Convention and Visitors Bureau to start the first Thursdays. She is an artist herself. She owned the DDP Gallery. She also owned an animal.
Rescue?
Well, it was
Is it
it's more
dog
like,
party?
kind of like dog party in a way. Yeah, she owned her own place. And
So when does she start?
she's quite accomplished now, and she will start on October 29th, which is Monday. So her first meeting, which is nice, will be at the potluck. So I know you all come and welcome her. And I think that's something else when you're talking to other neighborhoods, let them know that their new community outreach coordinator, they'll have the opportunity to meet her there, not just with the potluck and with the election. So I think you'll be highly, highly pleased with her knowledge and her skills and her just open heart.
And also, she's a very enthusiastic
Yes.
person. She's got a good sense of humor, and she's a fun person to work with.
Yeah.
And will she have Julie's old office?
She won't have the closet. She'll have the one I set her up with here.
The other closet over here.
Hey, that's a nice big one.
It
You've
is.
seen it?
It is.
That's
So-
a walk-in.
Without all the boxes in it?
It's a walk-in.
Yeah.
So tell us about the sustainability coordinator, the new man. He's down with the planning department, his office.
His office is down in that
In
development
planning.
services area, yeah.
Development, so
Peter Nearing,
nearing guard, and he,
he's the head of the sustainability and strategic planning. Those have been combined.
so it's in, the job's been enlarged, and you have to have more qualifications to get
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Most of us
Yeah.
could imagine.
And, you know, statistical, being able to, our reports really look at where's the environmental changes and we're able to track that. So, he's got a lot of that. It comes to us from Portland.
He was.
But actually, he went to the University of Arkansas.
Yeah, he did.
Actually,
But
he comes back to us.
He was pretty high in their city operation with, I
Yes.
forget all the things, but it had to do with
Yeah.
the,
Similar things, but well, also with public works.
yeah, a lot of public works activity that he was involved in. He was overseeing bringing more modern processes into this. I think he'll add totally different view from having worked up there in that position, so.
And the Wedding Corridor, you know, that kicked off tonight.
Oh,
At
it's-
the Boys and Girls Club, we got another press release out on that today with all the
Yeah.
dates.
That's where some of our
To
other
track.
neighborhood people are.
But that could be definitely
I know.
correct on that. There we have that. But you still have a good crowd. But I'm very excited about Dee Dee. She's very excited about it. And as Stan mentioned, she's just, there were 82 people, resumes, just outstanding people that I examined. I gave it a great deal of time, great deal of thought. I narrowed it down. I thought I was going to probably interview about 4, but I ended up picking 11 to interview. In the process, 2 had found jobs elsewhere because they were just marvelous, cream of the crop. I narrowed it down from there to 2 top candidates, and then Dee Dee just was a clear choice from that. She has everything that this office needs, and to grow there. And I think she'll add a lot to the city. And her connection with Crystal Bridges, with a lot of different, whether it's animal, the art. She also worked at the Walton Art Center as an exhibit coordinator. So she's got a lot of expertise there. And I also, if I may, I brought some packets tonight. These are ones that Julie and I put together with a lot of volunteers for the new orientation sessions that we started. We'll be doing those each year. And I took out things that weren't timely because, you know, we started those orientations in May. So what we're doing now is I have these all saved up and everything too, and I'm bringing boxes down occasionally to the to our water department. So when somebody new, a new resident comes in, and then they sign up for the water, and then they hand them one. One is kind of like a present, but it also gives an orientation to Fayetteville for them. And so we have probably about 350 left. So I brought a box, and I thought some of you may want to take some. You might want to take some of the student government members as well. And it does have the Good Neighbor sheet in there that was sponsored and created by this organization, this council. If you're under 30 years of age or know anyone, the Walton Arts Center is doing $10 tickets for you. Also in the packet is the Fayetteville Library has given you a library card and information about that, where all you have to do is take this and swipe it. It was the #1 library in the nation. If you haven't been to our public library, it's definitely a place to go. You get your community link and your Access Fayetteville book link. We have things from the Walton Arts Center, the Botanical Gardens, your Find It in Fayetteville window sticker, Shine Awards stickers, public access television offering. You have your Insider Guide, which is all the restaurants and places to go around town, plus your maps. It's got a trails map in here and everything. So it's a nice little, you can have this one. Yeah. And so it's a nice little packet. I hope you take something tonight. Please. So. And that's it.
While you're still on the stage, the way, is it pretty intuitive to find this form on the Access site? Access Fayetteville site?
Yes, you just go to the neighborhood association that says register, you know, where you register, and then you click on it. And I had, actually Joyce Richards sent it to me both ways. She both printed it off, then she copy and pasted it and put it into an email. This one's a little easier to read though, but I'll take them either way. And so what I thought I'd do with Dee Dee, if we get to a point where people have not, is I've got all the stuff collected from Julie, and I've sort of taken it from various locations and put neighborhood stuff all in one location. And so Dee Dee and I will sit down and we'll just say, you know, maybe we can revive some older ones. Maybe we can, and just call people. There's a lot that you can do on the phone that you just can't do, and I know a lot of people use email, but you really sometimes need that face-to-face.
Maybe get her name plugged in on the form.
Yes. Oh, yeah, we got to update that. Yeah. Yeah. Right now, though, I think the important thing is whether or not, yeah, Julie's is down here, the information, yeah, but in the transition, it would, I was hoping they would be all signed up by October before when Dee Dee got here, but not going to happen, so we'll get that changed.
Okay, I'll make a motion we adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Very well. Do I have a second for that?
What was it?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, yes. It's
I'll second that.
Oh, yes.
All in favor of
My
adjourning?
stomach will growl.
Aye.
So we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Very good.
Thank you.